Hi, this is Danielle Peterson with Wild Soul Living. I'm here today to talk about Women Who Run with the Wolves by Charissa Pinkola Estes. And I'm going to be talking to you today about Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is titled The Joyous Body and the Wild Flesh. And today what I wanted to do is Charissa really dives in. The other chapter so far really spoke about the spiritual aspects of the various wild woman archetypes. And in this chapter, she goes into the body, the earth versus the spirit. And so it's a little bit different story than what we have gone through so far. And in the story, it also talks about Maripose, the butterfly woman, and she represents the archetype of the wildest of the wild, which I'm going to go in greater detail. So what I'm going to be doing is, the purpose of this video is to I'm going to go through a few of my interpretations in the story and my key takeaways. And I'm not coming from a place of like, this is everything about the story, because that would be a really long video. I try to keep the video under 20 minutes for you. But the purpose of the video is to provide some stimulation, to provide maybe a different perspective from when you read the story. And what I'm going to be doing is I will be referencing page numbers, and just know there's a lot of different variations of the book. So if the page numbers don't match up exactly, just kind of look around, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it. So in this chapter 7, The Joyous Body and the Wild Flesh, Charissa really talks about the power of the body in another way. And like I said, it's way more, she talks in more of a physical light than a spiritual light. And it's coming from a place that women we want to be in our bodies. And Maripose, the butterfly woman, who, like I said, she references as the wildest of wild, uses as archetype and to teach us as wild women how every woman can use their body to more fully connect to the universe. And in the section of Maripose, and how she takes just a little of her pollen, and how just a little bit, and how you are healed or transformed. And I'm going to find that chapter. I love how the story of Maripose, the butterfly woman, starts, and she says, I have to tell a story, a true story, a rather long story. And the way that she begins that story really emphasizes, to me anyway, about the ancestors of women and our bodies and how it's passed down, and it is rather a long story. And so I love how that how Charissa started that particular section. And so diving in, my key takeaway for this particular chapter is it's a chapter of talking about the physicality of our body and how to really love this wild body. On page 204, it reads, a woman cannot make the culture more aware by saying change, but she can change her own attitude toward herself, thereby causing devaluing projections to glance off. She does this by taking back her body, by not forsaking the joy of her natural body, by not purchasing the popular illusion that happiness is only bestowed on those of a certain configuration or age, by not waiting or holding back to do anything, and by taking back her real life and living it full bore, all stops out. This dynamic self-acceptance and self-esteem are what begins to change attitudes in the culture. So again, it's about this idea of dynamic self-acceptance, of self-esteem. And when that begins to change within ourselves, the attitude in our culture can begin to change. And it's not easy. Because like I said, this has been going on for a long time. I think back to my own childhood where my dad would reference my body and say, well, you're never going to be skinny. You have an athletic body type. That's just how Hoigs are made. And I grew up believing that, and I have 3 kids, and my kids have the same sort of body type as me, is, not super thin, but not heavy, but, fairly athletic looking bodies. And I found myself saying the same thing. And I remember growing up feeling really sad about that. And I would often, I'm fairly curvy and bigger hips. And I remember as a child, I would hit my hips because I didn't want to be big boned. I didn't want to be athletic and muscular. I wanted to be super skinny and thin. And so it's more of a awareness to our language and how we talk to our kids, talk to each other, and it grows in our culture. But how we, as Charissa says, in order to change this, it really has to start from within inside you, of your natural body, which I love. And I admit it's not easy to do. So my key overviews of this chapter that I got out of it anyway, is that this chapter, this story is all about how we as wild women, the Maripose, how we can rediscover our female body and to honor its lineage and ancestors. And then the second point would be all these psychological ways that as women, our bodies have come under attack with the nasty and mental methods, and how the culture and society has been designed in such a way to reduce the natural, healthy love and self-confidence that does live innately with us, but we're really brought up a certain way as women in particular to look and act a certain way. And in the story specifically with La Maripose is how the wild woman embodiment, and how we can enjoy and celebrate and accept our bodies, that just a little bit can go a long way. And so those are my 3 key takeaways of the overview. If you were ask me what this story is about. And let's see, what I also like about this story is that Charissa, there's a subsection in this chapter where she talks about what she calls body talk, of a time in her own life where she described she had a woman friend with space in her teeth, and how she thought and perceived herself to be ugly, and in other cultures that was really celebrated, and how each of them, and how Charissa said that she was a little bit bigger set, and how a different culture saw her different, and how that there's healing with that. So I liked that Charissa brought in some personal elements to this particular story. It to me, it makes her more human, that she also struggles this as well. This is not an easy thing with living in the cultures that we do. I'm also going to read, I'm on page 200. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull out a few passages that, to me, there's, especially in the beginning of this chapter, I really felt it was almost poetic language to me. And so what I want to do now is read a couple of those passages. And this is on page 200 in my book. The body is a multilingual being. It speaks through its color and its temperature. The flesh of recognition, the glow of love, the ash of pain, the heat of arousal, the coldness of non-conviction. It speaks through its constant tiny dance, sometimes swaying, sometimes a jitter, sometimes trembling. It speaks through the leaping of the heart, the falling of the spirit, the pit at the center, and rising hope. The body remembers, the bones remembers, the joints remember, even the little finger remembers. Memory is lodged in pictures and feelings in the cells themselves. Like a sponge filled with water, anywhere the flesh is pressed, wrung, even touched lightly, a memory may flow out in a stream. To confine the beauty and the value of the body to anything less than this magnificence is to force the body to live without its rightful spirit, its rightful form, its right to exaltation. To be thought ugly or unacceptable because one's beauty is outside the current fashion is deeply wounding to the natural joy that belongs to the wild nature. Women have good reason to refute psychological and physical standards that are injurious to spirit and which sever relationships with the wild soul. It is clear that the instinctive nature of women values body and spirit far more for their ability to be vital, responsive, and enduring than by any measure of appearance. This is not to dismiss who or what is considered beautiful by any segment of culture, but to draw a larger circle that embraces all forms of beauty, form, and function. So I love that section. To me, it's some deep poetry, and what I love both about it is how these feelings and this embodiment is held in our cells, in our bones, and yeah, I just really like that a lot. Let's see, I think there is one other thing I wanted to read to you guys. I forget what page it's on. Oh, so this is on page 206. And I'll just go ahead and read it. Some say the soul informs the body. But what if we were to imagine for a moment that the body informs the soul, helps it adapt to mundane life, parses, translates, gives the blank page the ink and the pen with which the soul can write upon our lives. Suppose, as in fairy tales of the shape changers, the body is a god in its own right, a teacher, a mentor, a certified guide. So I love this idea that our body can be the guide to, and how our body can inform the soul that she writes about. And I believe she also says, like, our soul has, we have two eyes to see, our human eyes, but then our soul eyes, two ears to hear, our human ears, but then our soul ears. And I feel like I really resonate with that and how they each can inform each other. Let's see. And then she goes on to write, then what? It is wise to spend a lifetime chastising this teacher who has so much to give and teach, ? Do we wish to spend a lifetime allowing others to detract from our bodies, judge them, find them wanting? ? Are we strong enough to refute the party line and listen deep, listen true to our body as a powerful and holy being? And can we as wild women see our bodies as godlike in its wisdom and in its knowing? And when we touch our bodies, can we feel into that? So, and I'm going to end, I don't always do this, but I have a little assignment for you guys in the end when I get done, which touches upon like how our bodies and our cells hold the stories. But before I give that to you, I wanted to go to the section of La Mariposa, the butterfly woman. And in the story, she's called or referenced as a butterfly maiden, which is she goes out and she's the female fertilizing force of the old idea. She's the wild woman personified in her physicality, and how she carries the pollen from place to place, and how that just little bit is the fertilizing force, and it can move mountains, and how this cross fertilizing fertilizes the soul and the night dreams and our archetypes as women. So just that those little bits can make a difference in this mundane world, and how this La Mariposa, she is the center of our wild woman embodiment, and how transformation happens little by little, and how she brings the opposites together from here to there, and to allow this transformation to occur. La Mariposa, the butterfly woman, she is the teacher. She is the archetype of this wildest of wild, and teaches us how the butterfly does it. And and what's the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting about the butterfly woman is in the story, she talks about how the butterfly woman can touch everyone, and how it's her privilege to touch everyone. And to me, that speaks of the female power and our female body, and how much power and knowledge lives in there. And there's a little passage that I wanted to read. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. It's on page 212, and it reads, "The body is like an earth. It is a land unto itself. It is vulnerable to overbuilding, being carved into parcels, cut off, overmined, and shorn of its power as any landscape. The wilder woman will not be easily swayed by redevelopment schemes. For her, the questions are not how to form, but how to feel." And I think I love that line. So I'm just going to read it again. For her, for the wilder woman, for her, the questions are not how to form, but how to feel. The breast in all its shapes has good function of feeling and feeding. Does it feed? Does it feel? ? It is a good breast. And she goes on to write, the hips, they are wide for a reason. Inside them is a sandy ivory cradle for new life. A woman's hips are out triggers for the body above and the body below. So our hips as women are the center point of our body. They are portals. They are a lush cushion, the handholds for love, a place for children to hide behind. I like that. The legs, they are meant to take us, sometimes to propel us. They are the pulleys that help us lift. They are the enola, the ring for encircling a lover. They cannot be to this or to that. They are what they are. There are no supposed to be in bodies. The question is not the size or shape or the years or age, or even having two of everything, for some do not. But the wild issue is, does this body feel? Does it have the right connection to pleasure, to heart, to soul, to the wild? Question mark. Does it have happiness, joy? Question mark. Can it in its own way move, dance, jiggle, sway, thrust? Question mark. Nothing else matters. So it just goes to show the power is in our body, our power, the power of our wildest nature as women. And yeah, it's embodying our own physicality and finding the wisdom there, and how that can be a bridge to the soul. Because that's what I want. I want to live a soulful life, a soulful existence, and I want to lead with that. And if I can use my body as a tool, as an instrument to get closer to my wild soul, that's what I want. And so I'm just going to end, like I said, I mentioned before, I don't always do this, but a little assignment. And what I would like you to do, this is something that I have always done, but now after rereading this chapter, I'm recommitting myself to this. A lot of times before I take a shower, I have this dry brush that I brush my skin, and then I take a shower, and then afterwards I put lotion on. And the invitation is to do something where you're brushing or applying lotion or oils to your whole body and skin, and just this idea of thanking her for this wisdom, thank her for this body, thank her for this DNA of ancestors of women. And so as we give greater gratitude, we are in effect as women changing our cells, our DNA, our ancestry, our lineage. And like Charissa says, the change starts with us. So that's what I have for you guys today. Please subscribe to my channel. Next month I'll be doing chapter 8, and you can check out my website at www.daniellewildsoul.com. And I also have a Facebook page, Wild Soul Living, as well as a community page, Wild Soul Community, on Facebook. Please subscribe, send me any comments, feedback, what you want more of. Love to hear from you. Thank you so much.